This is a love letter to St. Charles Parish. What do I love most about this place? What I love about the place is the quietness, and which can be dangerous at times. But I love the trees. There are the magnolia trees. I love the levee and always found it a very calming place. I love zeros over anything. Although my experiences weren't perfect, I think that the Black community in my little small town was very monumental and taught me a lot. And a lot of Black women were able to help me become the leader and student and person that I am today, as well as other people in my family. My hopes and dreams is that people take initiative and remember where they live and constantly see that as a problem rather as something that is ignored. I wish people understood that this is a real place. This is a place that needs constant attention. And when people talk about energy dominance, they are talking about my neighborhood. When they talk about making more products in the US, they are talking about my neighborhood. They are talking about my people. And I think about the lives that have already been lost. And when people continue to say energy dominance, I think Cancer Alley. I think my community. I think my family.
I didn't know our area was even called Cancer Alley until I did my own research in high school. They normalize it so much. You normalize passing plants on the way to school. It's just something that's innate. Even the IMTT oil rigs that we passed to go to school, I thought that was normal for the longest time. It was so normal that I didn't even know the name of it because you just pass it on your way to school. It's okay, that's always there. It's never gonna move. All right, that's fine.
Life today, living next to a few refineries, is always knowing the risk and knowing who has been impacted by it. People will say, no, cancer is not, the refineries is not the reason why people have cancer, but I think we can all say that it is the reason why. So that takes a toll going home now. I think that most of the jobs that I know of are, people who went to engineering school, chemical, mechanical, and they decide to pursue a career and will make a lot of money. Those are the people that I know who usually got in a job in the refinery.
A lot of the times in St. Charles Parish public schools especially, if you don't want to go to high school or if you don't want to finish oh my gosh, what am I talking about? If you don't want to go to college or if you don't really want to a degree or if you don't want to dedicate years to school, they tell you, oh, just go work at the plant. Oh, plant jobs, you get $20 an hour and it's so many good benefits. You have to work 3 days a week and you make good money and it's so nice. So literally growing up, I thought that was an option. It was okay, college life, or you can go to the plant.
Something that I wish outsiders understood about this place is that it's complex. There's a lot of horrors that happen here, horrors that continue to happen. And yet people still find joy in living in this place and bring joy to other people's lives, yet will never really see just how needed it is for us to live in a cleaner place.
I get headaches a lot, like it's pretty darn frequent, and a lot of it I think has to do with the air that I was breathing there, and it's just things that like I didn't think anything of it because I was getting them so often. It's like, oh, it must be a me thing, like it's just every day. But then it wasn't until I moved out of the state that I really noticed that my headaches are definitely not as frequent, and I don't have to take as much medicine for it. Because when I tell you I was taking headache medicine every day, it was definitely a repetitive thing. But that just goes to show that we kind of realize our health issues too late, especially when it comes to living next to a refinery, because it's so normalized over there. And I think a good example of that is our friend Kaylee Diodne, because when she died, we found out that she didn't really know that she had leukemia, which was definitely not something that anyone predicted.
When I talk about cancer, Ali, I don't ever directly bring up the plantations. I think it's always the most polluted place in the United States with the highest rates of cancer, but never the plantations. I think that's something that I should definitely bring up more when I talk about cancer, Ali. I always know that history is connected and should always connect it for people to understand even more why that is, and why people in Norco and in Months and in St. Rose, why those people, especially the predominantly Black community in neighborhoods, will be the ones who are closer to the plants. It was a rebellion. It was one of the first enslaved rebellions, and I think the largest. I don't remember the name, but I never learned it, and it was an important part of the history of the parish and the little small city. And when we talk about our parish, we really don't talk about either the plantations or the refineries.
I would say they don't even connect it with slavery or anything really, especially plantations, because they don't really talk about it. Like, I remember growing up, Miss Pillier in my first grade class told me that climate change was like a touchy subject because we weren't sure if it was real or not. And I was like, oh, okay. Obviously, as a 6-year-old, but now we know a lot more than that.
The conversations that people avoid, I think they avoided all overall. It's uncomfortable for them. When people get, I remember growing up, people would bring cancer early as a joke. They would be like, ha ha ha, fun fact, we live in the most polluted place with the highest rates of cancer. Like, have you noticed why we have so many twins? And when I look back, I'm like, twins? Have I noticed how many people have been diagnosed with cancer? So I don't think people like to talk about the cancer part. And when it comes to the plantation, no one ever talks about how Black enslaved people were lynched there, because they are always comfortable enough to host their weddings, their graduation pictures, their events, and that is disgusting. I think places that are painful are, I think, the Dusher plantation, where the enslaved people who rebelled, who fought for their freedoms, were lynched by what some scholars would see was Dusherhin. Probably anywhere near, close to the fence of the refinery, and what's near them. You have neighborhoods, you have hospitals, a lot of hospitals, little clinics, and to me, it's kind of always weird. You're driving, you see a clinic, and then behind it is a refinery.
Something I wish outsiders knew is how often they are emitting this smoke. Like, when I tell you, we can see the Norco plant from our highway, and it's probably like a good 5-6 miles away, and you can see that it's like burning really bright. and that usually when that happens, they are just burning off stuff that they don't use. So it's not even like that they have to necessarily burn it off. It's that they just do it. And I think what's also very interesting is that we live right next to a nuclear power plant. Nobody was going to tell us really. Nobody was going to tell us. But we live right next to a nuclear power plant. So if anything were to happen, if there was like a malfunction, if there was a major hurricane, which in 2020, we actually exceeded the number of hurricanes past the Atlantic hurricane list, that if that power plant like goes down, everything in our area pretty much goes with it, because it does deal with nuclear energy, and nuclear energy is a lot more, I guess, unstable than a lot of other energy resources. So if anything were to happen to that plant, like everything surrounding it, including our parish, our neighboring parishes, would be doomed.
What would it take to heal from the history? I think that the community would really need to learn where they're from and stop naming things after whatever they think is whatever they think it's cute, whether it's the name of the slave owner or the name of the plantation. Like, that's not cute. And I think it's also understanding how that history is deeply still tied to our economic history and the history of the chemical plants. So I think it's tough conversations, but also policy today. And I hope that future generations will remember about that history, that they will take initiative to learn more, that even the older generation, as they learn their mistakes, pass on that story, continue to tell the story. I hope future generations doesn't accept this environment that we're living in. And I know that a lot of working families live in the district, and sometimes it's hard for working families to focus on things like addressing big issues like the chemical plants, because they're working, they have things to pay, children to look after. But I hope the future generation early on sees it as a problem and see they need to live in a place where they can breathe clean air, and that they live a life where they don't have to ever hear the word cancer. So, my love letter is a little tricky, but I really love where I'm from, and I consider my parish to be my second home. But it is a place that still brings much pain, in a place that is not perfect, and it will always be the little things that I must look at in order to enjoy the place that I live in versus the big things.
The place I call home. The winding road along the levee, where I miss home-cooked meals and festivals every weekend, those are the things I miss most. I wish I could say I see hope, but most people who live there never leave. The air, the ground, it's toxic. It's killing friends, families, piece by piece. I got out, but it still scares me for everyone I love who had to stay.